Hello, this is Mr. Horns 83. This is the Mr. Horns 83 show. And today I am getting to my review of Wolverine and the X-Men. And one of the big things I want to talk about for this show is the character designs, which I'll talk about in a minute. But first off, I gotta do the whole, age restriction thing. So this video is not for kids under the age of 13 years old, even though a lot of people were kids when this show came out in 2009. So, yeah. So, this video not for kids under the age of 13. So Wolverine and the X-Men. Now, here's the whole plot, the whole story of the whole one season they had. It was supposed to be multiple seasons, maybe one or two seasons. One more or two more seasons. James, I'm doing something. Well, that's good. But, it was supposed to be more than one season. It ended up being one season because this was around the time that the evil empire Disney had bought Marvel. So, yeah. So, the overall plot premise of this whole thing is X-Men starts out with the Inner Circle trying to capture Jean Grey because she's about to become the Phoenix. So they send in Emma Frost, which ends up backfiring because Jean sensed Emma Frost's attack, blows up the school. Also, Wolverine was getting ready to leave again, and him and Rogue get into an argument because Rogue, she has a little hissy fit because Wolverine's leaving again. Because, Rogue's like a kid sometimes in these shows. And so there's where the plot goes. Because then we flash forward. We see the little flashback of what happened. Wolverine wakes up. He's about to be attacked by the MRD. He's got to try to go reform the X-Men to take down the MRD. And they also need to find Charles Xavier, which they find in hindsight part 3 because Magneto has him because he ended up on Genosha after the attack. And we find out that it was Emma Frost that had put him there. So there's the overall premise. Oh, also when they do find Xavier's body, he sends them messages from the future. Makes Wolverine the leader of the X-Men. That's why it's called Wolverine and the X-Men. He sends a message from the future because he woke up in the Days of Future Past timeline, which, honestly, I thought they did a pretty good job with that whole arc. I mean, I think they did a little bit better with the arc in this show than they did the 90s cartoon. And look, I love the 90s cartoon to death, but, you didn't really resolve too much of the Days of Future Past in the 90s cartoon at the end of season 1. So, you didn't resolve too much. But anyway, that's the overall premise. So, they gotta change things in the past to try to change the future. And I thought that's not how time travel works. Especially if you watch Dragon Ball Z, you know that, that may stop your future from having that problem. But it's not going to stop the future that's already happened from that problem. But, X-Men and Dragon Ball Z are two different things. X-Men is an animated cartoon that spawned from comic books. Dragon Ball Z was part of a manga series, but, it is what it is. Now that I've gotten the whole premise of the whole storyline out of the way, which was a long-winded freaking talk, let's talk about some of the problems I got with the show. First off, there's a lot of inconsistencies in the story. Now, this is supposed to be a sequel show to the, This is supposed to be a sequel show to the 90s show. Also a sequel show to X-Men Evolution. And there's some inconsistencies with some of the storylines. Like, for example, the X-Men did not know who the Inner Circle was. Although Wolverine sure did act like he knew who Emma Frost was. And like, oh yeah, she's with the Inner Circle. She shouldn't be working with us because she's with the Inner Circle. And And as much as I'm a Wolverine fan, I think the show put a little too much focus on Wolverine as the, pretty much main character. Just because he's the leader. I mean, it was, it should have been more about the team than just one person, a part of the X-Men. Now, also, X-Men Evolution sequel, the difference between the Evolution sequel and the 90s sequel, like, look, they brought back the Jean Grey, they brought back the Cyclops Wolverine feud over Jean Grey, which you find out about in Breakdown why Wolverine was leaving the school this time around, because him and Cyclops got into a fight over Jean again. Because, Wolverine and Cyclops are always going to fight over Jean Grey. No matter how many, international women Wolverine has had, and there's plenty of other women on the X-Men that, honestly, in my opinion, look way better than Jean Grey. But, Jean Grey, Wolverine and Cyclops fights over Jean Grey a lot, I mean, you could have always made the premise of, Wolverine eventually gives up on Jean and just hooks up with Storm, but that never happens. Or, maybe Wolverine and Gambit fight over Rogue, who knows? But, I mean, like, even Psylocke, like, golly, a lot of better looking X-Women on the X-Women team than freaking Jean Grey. So I don't get why the big deal is always about Jean Grey with Wolverine and Cyclops. Now if Wolverine wants to fight Cyclops over, Decision Cyclops that makes sense. But, so yeah, they focused a little too much on Wolverine. I would have liked them to focus more on the team. They do start doing that later on in the season. Like, they start focusing more on the team instead of just focusing on Wolverine. Another problem I got with this show is the character design on some of these characters. Now, I mean, look at Sabretooth here. Look at Sabretooth. Sabretooth looks stupid. And you know what? This is one thing I hate about the 2000 X-Men movie, is that trenchcoat Sabretooth became a thing because of the 2000 X-Men movie. Trenchcoat Sabretooth is dumb. I like the old style of Sabretooth, which this episode I got it on particularly. They do show how Sabretooth looked before he started wearing trenchcoat. Now look, they did the same thing with X-Men Evolution, but look, I thought Sabretooth looked a little better in X-Men. In X-Men Evolution, Sabretooth design was a lot better than what he was designed in this show. I mean, honestly, it's just ridiculous. Another issue I have with this show is, of course, Rogue. Her freaking just, having a fit because Wolverine left, so she goes back to joining the Brotherhood. Oh, I'm mad. Logan left. I'm done. And they kind of built up the Rogue Wolverine relationship storyline pretty much through X-Men Evolution. That's why I say this is a sequel of a mixture between the 90s cartoon and the X-Men Evolution show. And the Rogue Wolverine thing came about in X-Men Evolution. And, I don't know, they never explained if she thought of Wolverine as a father, or if she had a crush on Wolverine, or whatnot. They didn't explain that, but, you see in the movies that they play up that storyline as well, where, she thinks of Wolverine. At first she's got a crush on him, then she starts thinking of him as a father, and Wolverine's like, yeah, you know what? Like what I seen in X-Men 2, where he's, like, talking to Iceman, and Iceman's talking about, oh, our relationship isn't where I want it to be. He looked at him like he was a father about to kill an in-law or something. Because he's like, hey, Rogue's kind of like my daughter there, bub. I'll kill you. But, yeah, so, yeah, the Rogue, I don't know if it's because she thinks of the father in here, or if she's got a crush, I don't know. Who knows? But, like I said, this storyline mostly spawned from the end of X-Men Evolution with Wolverine and Rogue. So, also another thing I don't like, another problem I got is the storyline they put in here. Now, look, I guess they stole that from the movies for sure, where Mystique and Wolverine apparently were an item. That or Mystique, because, like, Mystique had a crush on Wolverine in the movies, but, you know, they weren't an item, but they make it in this Stolen Lives episode like them two had a relationship. So you don't see like Silver Fox or Unico, Lady Deathstrike, or nothing like that. Another thing that really irritates me, and this irritated me with X-Men Evolution, because the 90s cartoon, kind of, you know, maybe the comic, he wasn't dead at the time. But, you know, the 90s cartoon, Wolverine had already killed the guy that put the adamantium in him. But apparently he's still alive in this one. But not only was he still alive in this one, he was also alive in X-Men Evolution. But even though it looked like he killed him in X-Men Evolution as well in episode 12, Grim Reminder, which that was the one I thought that, you know, I think that's the one that I thought was the one where you know, Nightcrawler finds out Mystique was his mom. But yeah. Another thing too that really bothers me is, you know, the storyline they build up. You know, there's a lot of things that bother me about it. Like right here, this storyline between Polaris and Gambit being in love, even though Gambit was always chasing Rogue. So, you know, makes no sense why they got that. This episode here, Rover, it's pretty much, you know, the episode where, you know, we find out Marrow's kind of like the current day Rogue of that time. She throws a fit just because she liked that freaking Rogue Sentinel, and then the Rogue Sentinel got killed, and, you know, she's going to turn into Xavier over that. Yeah, big, dumb, stupid. Now, I've said a lot of things I dislike. One more thing I got to get: the freaking character design and the costumes. First off, let's get into Magneto's costume. Looks so freaking generic. Looks so dumb. It looks like, you know, the costume he had in Evolution. I loved his costume in Evolution. I thought that was an awesome Magneto costume. And then if you see the costume he had in the original X-Men cartoon, that's a pretty nice costume as well. Gambit's costume kind of looks similar to his regular one, but looks kind of stupid too. Nightcrawler's is alright, you know. Then you get the Time Bomb. This guy's costume looks totally generic. I'm guessing this guy's supposed to be, I guess, a version of David Hollard, which is Xavier's son. Except for he's not David Hollard. He's not Legion. But, you know, still, it's ridiculous. But let me get into more of the inconsistencies with the storyline. Then I'll start talking about some of the things I liked about the show. But another thing I did not like is the way Mr. Sinister looked in this show. I mean, you know, not only the way Mr. Sinister looked in the show, but who they chose to play his voice. Look, Clancy Brown, he's good at playing Lex Luthor, but he was not good at playing Mr. Sinister. I mean, come on now. That's just like Michael Irison. He plays the leader of the MRD, which he does good as the leader of the MRD. But he also played Darkseid in the old Justice League and the freaking Superman animated show and all that. But Clancy Brown, you know, when you hear that sinister voice, it's like, you could tell it's Clancy Brown. Or you could say, oh, it's current day Mr. Krabs. It's Mr. Krabs playing Mr. Sinister. Or, you know, Lex Luthor playing Mr. Sinister. I did not like Clancy Brown as Mr. Sinister. I thought his voice acting was bad. I mean, look, his voice acting wasn't bad. I'll take that back. But I just thought that was a mismatch to pick Clancy Brown to play Mr. Sinister. Now, you choose him to be like someone else, another character on the show, I think it'd be perfectly. But I did not like Mr. Sinister's look. He did not look like a traditional Mr. Sinister. He looked like a freaking, he just looked terrible. And if there was a picture on here of it, I would show it. But, you know, you go back and watch the show and you'll see why I said I don't like how Mr. Sinister looks in this. See if he's a picture of him in Guardian Angel episode. Nope. But yeah, I do not like how Mr. Sinister looked. And, you know, he's not in Shades of Grey either. So, you know, he's in 3 episodes of this show. And that's about it. Well, actually 4 if you count the ending of Foresight. But I just did not like the look of Mr. Sinister. Also, Apocalypse. First of all, Apocalypse don't have a voice in this. He does. And, if you would have chose the Apocalypse look from Evolution, which, I had a gripes about that when I did my Evolution review last week. If you would have chose that look for Apocalypse, that would have been fine. But you choose this totally different look. It looks so stupid. Apocalypse looks so generic. It was unreal. And, also, let's talk about Cyclops. Cyclops, yeah, I know he's supposed to be slimmer and that, but he looks like a freaking one of those skinny emo anime characters from an anime, honestly. He looks way too skinny when you have the 90s cartoon where he looked pretty jacked. I mean, and, X-Men Evolution, he was skinny, but he was also a teenage boy at that time. But he looks like a totally skinny emo anime character. That's what Cyclops looks. Costume looks cool and all for Cyclops, but everything else about Cyclops just looks crazy and whack. Also, the look for Archangel. As you see, he's Angel right here. Which, if this is from the X-Men Evolution storyline, because he was still Angel at the end of X-Men Evolution, but he was not Angel by the end of the 90s cartoon. He was freaking Archangel. This episode, though, I like this episode. Wolverine versus the Hulk. Really good episode. They also made a movie of it, which I thought was a little bit better than this fight in this movie. But, you also got Silver Samurai, who also looks generic. I like the old school. And as Archangel, Angel looks ridiculous. I mean, honestly, he looks ridiculous. I like how here in Breakdown, you got Cyclops, you got Beast, you got freaking, you got Iceman and Angel. So, why is Iceman a kid in the current day? Because this is based in the current day, based in the time it came out, which was 2009, but yet Iceman's there, and he's not a kid. So that's something else too, because they had even in their own show, they had some inconsistency. I mean, first off, they do mention Sinister, wanting Jean Grey for experiments, but then later on, when you do see Sinister go after Cyclops and Jean, Sinister goes after Cyclops and Jean. They don't say, oh, he's just after Jean Grey. So a lot of inconsistency, and like I said, Rogue throwing a hissy fit because Wolverine was leaving again, even though he was going to come back probably. She throws a hissy and ends up joining the Brotherhood, and then she comes back to the X-Men in battle line. So yeah, Overflow. This is based on the Storm and Shadow King storyline again, which you only seen it in one of these animated shows up to this point. You see it in this one, but then you seen it in the 90s cartoon. You didn't see it in Evolution because it wasn't really brought up in Evolution. But you do see it in this show. And, the X-Men and that have to get the Shadow King out of her, which they do. Which I was hoping we'd see a return of the Shadow King in Season 2 as well, but we don't. It's just crazy. Well, and like I said, I do like the show. I just have all these issues with it that really irritates me. And, with X-Men Evolution, there was not as many issues with that as this one was. I mean, I'm still going to give it probably a positive grade because it was a good show. The storyline overall was good. The problem was all the other stuff. So let's jump to the end of this season, which is Foresight. Deadly Ground. This also has Mojo in it. Let's get Badlands. Seems like they broke a lot of these things up in chapters. Oh yeah, by the way, a lot of the costumes these X-Men are wearing are from the Astonishing X-Men costumes. So, let's jump to the final episode. So, with the final episode of this show, a lot went on. We found out why the Inner Circle wants the Phoenix. Sebastian Shaw orders, Emma Frost's cuckoos to destroy the Sentinels, take down Magneto, and destroy Genosha. And speaking of which, Magneto also in this show, Magneto has Genosha. He got control of Genosha, but we find out later on his plan is, we gotta get all this army here in Genosha, and we want the humans to attack Genosha so that I can have a reason to go attack the humans and show that mutants are superior to humans and just kill everybody. Which, even though after Senator Kelly ends up backing out of the Sentinel thing, after Xavier shows Magneto and shows Magneto and Senator Kelly what the future is going to hold and how, the Sentinels take over the world in the future. And, so Senator Kelly cancels it. Speaking of looking generic, I thought Bolivar Trask looked very generic in this show. And where was Gyrick? Let's see. So, yeah, Magneto then has Mystique disguise herself Senator Kelly because he has Quicksilver, capture Senator Kelly and bring him to Genosha. Has Mystique disguise herself to have the Sentinels attack Genosha. She tells Trask, hey, we're going to attack them anyway. So they do, and, everything goes wild. Magneto takes control of the Sentinels, goes to frickin' New York, and tries to wipe all the humans out. Things backfire because the cuckoos, because the Phoenix Force takes him down along with the frickin' Sentinels. And they lose control. Also, Emma Frost does sacrifice herself. She starts out that she's a villain, which you pretty much could tell from the first episode on that she was up to something. Even Wolverine didn't trust her at first. But then, in the Foresight episode, she finally earns the trust of the X-Men. And, she sacrifices herself to save everybody. So, she sacrifices herself to get rid of the Phoenix, which she, sends up into the air. And she explodes in her crystal form. And, Jean's like, I don't care. Try to steal my man. And that would have been an interesting thing if they would have did a season. Let's say, they found a way to revive Emma Frost in season 2. And then you have the whole Jean Grey versus Emma Frost over Cyclops thing. Along with Wolverine wanting Jean. Now, Emma Frost could have probably found a plan where she tried to manipulate Wolverine into helping her split up Jean and that. I mean, Wolverine wouldn't do that. He's an honorable man, but Emma Frost was shameless. But would have been interesting. Also, one of these episodes had Colossus in it. I forgot which one. It might have been Excalibur. Who knows? Might have been Backlash. I don't know. But, one of these episodes had Colossus. And Colossus was supposed to come back. In season 2, there was going to be a whole thing where Colossus comes back. I guess Deadpool was supposed to be in this show as well. Looked like the Age of Apocalypse was going to happen at the end of the episode. And you know what? Mr. Sinister in the Age of Apocalypse timeline in this show looked better than he did in the 3 episodes they had him prior to this. Because he's in Excessive Force, then he's in Shades of Grey, and then he's in the freaking final episode. Oh yeah, no, it's just Shades of Grey, he's in Excessive Force, and he's in the Archangel episode, which he's the one that turns Angel into Archangel this time, which is something else that was weird, because Apocalypse initially did that to make him his Horseman of Death. But we do find out at the end of Shades of Grey that the whole time Sinister's doing this, he's working for Apocalypse, so yeah. Alright, now for the thing I liked about the show. I like the storyline. I like a lot of the character development once they started focusing on other characters other than Wolverine. One thing I did not like was Jean Grey. I like Future Bishop. He's pretty cool. I don't like Marrow because she's not Jean Grey. Frickin' Rogue. I did not like Rogue because she was frickin' a whiny baby in this show pretty much because Wolverine was leaving. And she's mad about it. You're not going to be here. I'm mad. I'm going to join the Brotherhood. And I'm going to come back to the X-Men. Magneto at first seems like he don't want no more fighting, but then he frickin' decides, oh, screw this, I still want to fight humans. and, you know, rule humans and mutants and all that. So, yeah, I like some of the character developments. I like some of the characters. And some of the character designs were pretty good. I do like the Astonishing X-Men costume. Like I just said about Cyclops' costume, I thought it was pretty cool. That is his Astonishing X-Men costume. Only thing is, he didn't have the trench coat. He never wore the trench coat in Astonishing X-Men. He wore that suit, but not a trench coat over it. Which I think it makes this costume looks even cooler than what it did in Astonishing X-Men comics. Wolverine being interested in more women other than frickin' Mystique, because in the Silver Samurai episode, he was also talking to another former love of his, who I guess was married to the Silver Samurai, and the Silver Samurai wanted a revenge and was taking it out on her because he knew that she loved Wolverine more than him and all that, you know. You know, they did not follow up on a storyline when Wolverine kicked the crap out of Silver Samurai at the end of, I think it was like toward the end of season 4 or 3 of frickin' the 90s X-Men cartoon. Kicks the crap out of Silver Samurai because he's attacking a village for Wolverine's stand to try to find himself, which, you know, they did that time and time again. But yeah, I did like, also they introduced that apparently Archangel and Storm were in love with each other, and, you know, when they're trying to convince Angel not to be a bad guy no more, Storm's there with him because it's Wolverine and Storm trying to convince him. You know, I like a lot of the future characters, mostly Bishop, because we got to see a lot more Bishop, and I was a big Bishop fan as a kid, especially watching the 90s cartoon. So, you know, not seeing a lot more Bishop in this show was pretty awesome. I would have liked to seen the frickin' Age of Apocalypse frickin' timeline play out. Also, you had the thing where Wolverine was with Mystique. Now, yeah, I had an issue with it, but, you know, Mystique and Wolverine, they might have made a good item, but, you know, that all could have been, you know, maybe Mystique was misremembering and it was her and Sabretooth, because, you know, Sabretooth and Mystique are always the ones that, you know, have relationships. So maybe she was mistaken and she's like, oh, it's Wolverine, no, actually it's Sabretooth, but, you know. And I like that they did do a thing where a lot of the X-Men got their own episodes. Storm got her own episode. Gambit got his. Nightcrawler. Then you got the Wolverine one. Then you got this one, which was a pretty good episode. Then you get Cyclops going after Mr. Sinister. Rogue finally stopped being a pouty little girl and frickin' decides to leave the Brotherhood and become good again. They did play up how Magneto always treated, you know, Scarlet Witch better than Quicksilver on this show too, which is something that the 90s cartoon, he's like, oh, I care for both of them. Although him and frickin' Quicksilver always had a bad relationship pretty much, you know. And, you know, Magneto was always nicer to Scarlet Witch than he was to Quicksilver. So, yeah. So, I'm glad they played up that storyline a bit too, because you know how it is, you know. Which the 90s cartoon did not, because when he found out who Quicksilver and frickin', you know, Scarlet Witch were his kids in that one episode, I think it was a two-parter, he's like, oh, I love both my kids, and then, you know, they never played it up like, oh yeah, him and Quicksilver had a not good relationship. Even X-Men Evolution played up the bad relationship that Quicksilver and frickin' Magneto had, but they also played it up like, you know, because he put Scarlet Witch into I guess an insane asylum or something like that, because he couldn't control her. They played it up more like he treated her worse than he did Quicksilver, but, you know, in the end, he still frickin' favored Scarlet Witch over Quicksilver at the end of frickin' X-Men Evolution. So, yeah, they played it up pretty well with that storyline. I think this and Evolution did a good job with that, where the 90s cartoon failed. That's probably one of the only things the 90s cartoon really failed at. But yeah, there are some flaws about the 90s cartoon I will talk about when I do the review of that. Not next Tuesday, but next Thursday, because I'm going to do X-Men 2 review on Tuesday. And the thing I like better, I'm going to review frickin' Thursday. So, yeah. But yeah, overall, I liked the show. I thought the storyline was good. I just had some issues with the character design. Some of the character designs were stupid. The way Mr. Sinister looked was just terrible. The way Apocalypse looked was freaking terrible. But, you know, a lot of the other characters looked alright. I mean, Archangel looks like he's freaking a skinny emo anime character as well. But yeah. So overall, I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I think the show's still a good show. I wish it would have got that second season of the Age of Apocalypse storyline, which we never freaking got. Because like I said, the Evil Empire Disney bought Marvel at the time, and X-Men was owned by Fox, so, you know, that went to crap because Fox and Marvel couldn't get along or blah, blah, blah. So X-Men suffered for that as far as TV-wise and movie-wise. Although now that Disney has X-Men, now that Disney owns Fox, now we'll be able to see X-Men, you know, not suffer TV-wise and movie-wise. And like I said, a new animated series would be awesome, but, you know, if you want to revive a show, because a lot of people talk about the revival of the 90s show, let's revive this one. Give us that Age of Apocalypse story. Design the characters a little better, though, for season 2. Don't make them look freaking generic, because I think even Colossus in the episode he was in, I think he looked generic. So, yeah, don't give us generic-looking characters like season 1 did. Make the characters look a little bit better if you do revive this and bring us season 2 Age of Apocalypse storyline. But, yeah, that'll do it for this one. Please like this video, leave a comment, subscribe for more. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Hornsby83. Follow me on Facebook at the Mr. Hornsby83 Show fan page, which I just did a Mother's Day special on there. I also reviewed Money in the Bank 2020, which I did not care for. I also talked about some things from JoJo's Bizarre Adventures and Paranormal Detective, and a few other things that I talked about on there. But yeah, please like this video, leave a comment, subscribe for more, and I will catch you guys here on YouTube Thursday, unless I decide to do it Friday morning, but I'll probably do it Thursday, for the review of the first X-Men movie, where the trench coat Sabretooth happened. So, catch you guys later, and peace out.